Welcome, everyone, to the Mount Gretna School of Art lecture series hosted here in Pennsylvania, Chautauqua's Hall of Philosophy. I'd like to start by thanking our lecture sponsor for the season, Stinson Strout. And then I also would like to mention some of our season sponsors here that have supported the school. Purpose One, Mount Gretna Arts Council, the William Drindle Fund, the Mount Gretna United Methodist Church, Ronnie G. DeHaven Fund, the Rosemary Beck Foundation, the Golden Foundation, and the Thomas A. and Georgina T. Rousseau Family Foundation. And I'd also like to thank everyone who contributed to 2 Celebration of Life funds this year, the Christine Hanna Scholarship and the Ophir Agassi Grant. Just in case you don't know, Mount Gretna School of Art, it's our 10th anniversary this year. It's a big deal. And it's a 7-week training camp atmosphere for painting and drawing. There's really nothing like it anywhere anymore. They're in class every day, working throughout the summer. They're now in their 4th week or 5th week. There's a student show coming up this Sunday right here in the Hall of Philosophy. So, they still have a few more weeks, but it's a good chance to see something about what they've been working on up to this point. All right, now I'm going to introduce Ying, who, I have been a fan of since I was their age. Saw her paintings, and I just had never seen anything like it. And, of course, it's been a pleasure having her here this summer and living in the cottage with us and hearing about the exploits with the students out to the flower farms. And she's the Phyllis Koshland Professor of Fine Arts and Department Chair at Haverford College. She was born in Beijing and graduated from Anhui Teachers University, where she taught. She immigrated to the United States in 1983 and received an MFA from Parsons School of Design. She's had solo exhibits at Pamela Salisbury Gallery in Hudson, the Centro Incontri Uni in Switzerland, the New York Studio School, Lowen-Guidauld, New York, Elizabeth Harris, New York, the Painting Center. But anyway, I'm gonna let Ying take it over.
The first thing I want to say is just great to come back here. I was here in 2016 after my husband died. So, to me, it's, being here, that was like a part of the healing process. Everybody's just so, so wonderful and helpful, understanding, to paint with everybody. Just, that was great. So I was looking forward to come back, and I'm working with this wonderful group of young painters. It really energized me and also made me think about a lot of issues in my own work. And today I'm going to just show some of the work with you guys, and I want my students to really questions. The focus will be the past 2 years during the pandemic time. I will start from my very early work and going through just very quickly what I've been doing since I came to the United States. And then we just go into the pandemic time. This is the first piece is I did when I was in college. At the time, okay, a little bit of history. I grew up in China under the communist regime. At the time, it's a dictatorship. For example, there's a dress code, and pretty much you see like a black, blue in the winter, and the white and the pale blue in the summer, and so for me, color to me it's a big deal. It's a very sensitive thing, and this is the painting I did for my graduation thesis, and I got into college just pure by luck. because I had this, so-called really bad political background. My father was a college professor and Russian literature, specialist, and I was not qualified to even apply college. But this professor, came to the city where I was. He really fought for me to get in. I remember, when I heard I was not qualified to apply, of course, the anger and frustration was just, terrible. And anyway, I went to the side where they gave the test, and I just sit by the door. I just drew at my drawing book with me, and he came behind me, and he didn't say a word. And I thought he would kick me out, but he didn't. And then later on, he just fought me. So when I was in school, of course, I was like in heaven. Even we had to go through all kinds of, military training, work on farm, and work in the factory. I was just so happy. And we trained in the very academic social realist style, which came from like a French academy to the Russian academic, then passed to the Chinese at the time. This is the only painting I did. I used the photo. After that, I never used photo again. And I had my friends post for me, and I drew, I took, pictures, and I was pretty proud of myself, put up, all this stuff together. But these paintings didn't get passed because they said that the woman in yellow dress looked, so bourgeois. And how could you wear a dress in that color to go to work? And so they asked me to change that, and I didn't change it, and I just painted another and submitted. After graduate, the political atmosphere started to change in China, and very, very lucky I got to kept in the college, and I started to teach in the same department for 6 years. That's really the beginning of my teaching career. I thought it just like the education is so very, very important, and I really see it as an number one thing, in human experience. And when I got to New York in '83, and of course, the first sight, I was just, fell in love with the city. I still do. I remember we drove from Newark Airport to New York, and at the sunset time, and I saw the city in the distance, and the light came out. That was like huge impact on me. It was just shocking to see that volume of the light and the power and the energy. And the next day, my husband took me to Museum of Modern Art. Got to see Cézanne my first time, and got to see Giacometti, Bernard, Perrin, Matisse, Picasso, all of them the first time in my life. Then the next day, we went to this jazz club, Sweet Basil, and my first time. There are so many first times, I heard jazz, and I just fell in love with jazz since then. But very, very soon, I fell in this kind of a confusion, because I couldn't find my footing in this world, I looked at the stuff, I went to the galleries, the shows, I didn't understand, I couldn't relate, and I needed to learn. I really need to learn. I looked for a grad program, and I found Parsons, where I could ride my bike there, because I didn't know any schools that time. So I thought, yeah, I could ride bike there. So that's it, So I went there, and the first time I went there for interview, I met this guy, Leland Bell and Paul Risica. I think some of you heard of them, and John Hallaker, 3 great painters. And I remember walking to that little office, and they were all sitting there, and Leland Bell asked me a question, said, "Who's your favorite painter?" And actually, I really didn't have a favorite painter at the time because I didn't know. And but I just saw a big show of Pierre Bernard at Phillips collection office, and that's the show just stay in my head, the colors and the mystery of the world. So I just said Bernard, and I saw this little smile on his face. I knew I hit the right button, so I got in, and of course that was just great. 2 years straight painting and absorbing all stuff, which I didn't know because I didn't have an education here. For me, it's everything's new, everything's fresh, everything's so sharp. The impact is just tremendous. And this is Leland's self-portrait, a very powerful painter and the teacher. I remember most what he did. It's not about talking about my work. It's really about what he showed. All these images, from Ying portraits all the way to Giacometti to Mondrian, through the whole time, and also he took us every Friday, either there's a slideshows or we go to a museum, and he talked about those works right in front of the work. That was like tremendous. I remember we were at the Museum of Modern Art, and I was looking at this Hopper. I said, Leland, how come you never talk about this? And he didn't. He just rolled his head. He got his big eye. He just then dragged me and to the room and put me right in front of a little Sukin's portrait, little tiny portrait of a girl. He said, "Look at this." He's the most opinionated teacher, but to me, just like he's the one. I still try to get his voice out of my head after all these years. And that fall, this huge de Kooning show at Whitney Museum, and first time I saw painting like this, and can be painted like this. I know portrait pretty well. I know figure. I thought I know pretty well, because I painted those pretty much, in China and through the training and doing commission work. But when I saw this, I just hit right, on my chest. And since then, I've been thinking about the impact, of the image. It's just it's not just about the image. It's so much about how it's being delivered, and how the artist can get you to see them themselves. And this is from my grad school at Parsons. After graduate, I painted. I had a studio and I painted in New York. And painting these semi-abstract paintings. You know, I started teaching at Haverford College. That's the first time really got me back to landscape. You know, I worked on a very rural farm village in China for 5.5 years. You know, totally it's as a punishment. You know, to grow your own food. You know, just do all the labor work. So landscape has a very different kind of feeling, different meaning to me. You know, always I'm related to some kind of a negative thing, you know, being punished to be there. But you know, Haverford has this gorgeous campus, and you know, it just made me to see it kind of all over again. And then I started to teach at Monte Castello Di Vivio International School of Art. You know, it's a great school. It's sort of you know, what you do here, you know, related to that. Founded by Nick Caroni, studio school guy. And I taught there for 8 straight summers. And that really got me into landscape. When you're in this tremendous, amazing place, the power of nature just, you know, just took me over. You know, so I've been painting landscape-inspired work since then. We talked about that in the class, you know, the role of the sky, you know, the character of the sky. You know, the skies are never like fall back, they're so present, they're right here. You know, for me, the landscape is like this. You know, it's like I'm in this big energy ball instead of there. And also being in United States gave me this amazing chance to travel. I did a bunch of art residence, you know, partly because I love travel. I love to be in different places and to paint, you know, different place, different palette, a different atmosphere. You know, it's just like that. To me, it's like the best thing I could do. This is in Newfoundland, Canada. Fishing village. This is a pond dock at. This is also a sunset, you know, on the island. And this is this boat, historical vessel in St. Mary's City, Maryland. I did a couple of residence there, St. Mary College. And Oaxaca, Spain. You see how the place influenced, you know, how I paint and the touch and then the color, the palette, you know, this, I think those elements is very important to me to keep the painting live, to keeping it out of my head, you know, not just, I like to be outdoors, you know, to pull up. And Switzerland, that was a great experience, you know, I got residence there and I invited my former student actually to go with me. We just drove to the Alps to paint. You know, you don't want to paint it that way every day. You know, it's just too much, too exhausting, too overwhelming, too much to see. But you know, that experience really made me feel, you know, what the landscape is about. You know, that kind of a scale is just unbearable. And a little village in Switzerland. This is in Rome, American Academy in Rome, and I was there as a visiting artist. And I just painted in this garden, the part of the academy. This is the entrance to the garden. Amsterdam, the canal. Of course, you got to get a bike if you do any work there, because the bike is just like they're the queen and king, not the cars. They're just everywhere. And it's just Portugal, beekeepers farm at Castro Marine, southern Portugal. The Rosendale, upstate New York. Here, this painting was the first time I was here, painted by the church. We just come out of the woods. I think this boat might be look familiar to you guys. It's this ferry on Lake Chautauqua. I taught there for 10 summers. And upstate New York, near Buffalo. And they dragged this boat from Mississippi River to the Lake Chautauqua and used as ferry from Mayville in the next town, and so every summer I went to the same spot and I just painted this boat. Every summer I just painted the boat. I love to revisit same, subject matter, same place, just see how far you can go. Same boat. The boat is sort of disappeared. This is the last visit. I think from the first one and to this one is pretty much like 5 summers, apart. And gets to this point, you can see the way I paint, and also I'm more into like atmosphere instead of object. Telluride in Colorado, and I taught workshops there. I go to teach in the summertime sometimes, but I only go to the place I can work. I can paint. If I can't paint there, I don't go. And I come here, I can paint. It's a great place to paint. That's the number one thing. Yeah, this is also pretty much at the same spot. I just, keep going. This is the first painting that actually is drawing. I did after my husband died. I couldn't paint for about a year because, of course, it's so sad. And also, so much you have to go through and stuff to take care of. And I remember a bunch of friends and my students helped me to move his library out of Chelsea, New York, into Haverford College. The library at Haverford just took the whole collection of books. It's like 120 boxes of books. And I stood in this empty studio. It's a small studio apartment, and on the 15th floor, looking north. And so I just grabbed a piece of paper, start to draw. And that's how I got started, again. And this piece is about 6 feet, 7 feet. Paul, and I didn't plan to do this. I did one drawing, then I did another one, another one, another one, another one. Exactly from the same window, you look little up and down, little up and down. I was experienced what he saw. And so that's how these pieces, all put together. And then I just, I couldn't stop. I just did a bunch of this stuff from the same window, just this one window. And then, then I did some bigger paintings. So this painting is about 4 feet vertical. This painting is on the set of, this TV show called something. It's like a sequence of Sex and the City. It's in that room where the main character, Jessica Parker, something, in her living room. I was so thrilled because when they asked me, I didn't know what that show was. Then I asked Conrad, said, whoa, that everybody knows that show. And so I said, yeah, cool. But this one's about 7 feet tall and did the same window, the city. And you can see here, I'm really moving into how the drawing and the plan and the color and the lines work together. And also, for the past number of years, I've been thinking about the Chinese calligraphy and the painting, and how the lines can express, one's, feeling, intention, in the integrity of each marks. I've been thinking about that. Well, I will talk a little bit later. I traveled a lot, but also at home, but pretty much I have 2 bases, New York, we saw some New York work, and then on Harvard campus. This tree is in my backyard, and I painted this tree a zillion times. I just painted, I couldn't get enough of, because every time you look at it, I said, I really haven't got it. I haven't got it. And every time I look at it, it just surprises me. So I just keep painting this tree through different seasons, different kind of structure in terms of with the surrounding, area, and different palette. This, all leaves fall. This one's a really quite messed up. At winter. Then I just painted the fields around it. And it gets here, it's, everything broke up. It's more about the flow, the movement, and the rhythm. This looks familiar to everybody. Pandemic came, and we had shortage of Kleenex. Remember, we couldn't see them on the shelf, and some kind of a really mundane object, you never think about. It's because it's always there, and it becomes, it's like a central of your life. And so I painted a bunch of it. It's a Kleenex box. This is 2 of them. And it was a great time. It's terrible to set up, but for a painter, you just like you've got to put in that place. Okay, You can't go anywhere. You can't sort of shy away from what you need to deal with. And so I just painted on canvas. And it's the first time I had a chance to paint bigger paintings right on the side. And that was just great. My boyfriend, Conrad, just slapped me a pen, box of paint and big hands. That was great. And also, the nature and the trees and the animals, they really blossomed during that time because of the humans sort of like step back, and give them some chance to really renew. That's why I give the title of this talk, Blossoms in Strangeness. Actually, it's also come from Neruda's poem. That's the side. That's I painted right on the side. Cherry blossom, flowers, and the little courtyard between academic buildings. I would never have a chance to go there to paint because it's such heavy traffic. Students, faculty. Also, I couldn't drop paint on the path there. It's the same spot. It was just great, to have the chance to paint it that big and right on site. I just absorbed the change of the light, the wind and the form changes and the sky changes, the energy. It's wonderful. And this is, I just put a vase right on the ledge of the porch and painted the landscape. This is the only painting indoor. Actually started outdoor, then I brought back, I finished in my studio at night. I like to work, long session. Just like start really early and then just go into the day, go into the evening. To me, it really doesn't matter much, the sense was here and now was there. It's really about how the painting evolved, and after a while, the painting is really just tell me what I need to do. And I just take it in from, whatever around them. A single orchid. This is a little tiny thing like this, but I worked for so long. Usually the small paintings takes longer time, and because it got to eat, everything's so clipped together really tight. Little empty nest. When it happened, I actually see the right in the center, there's a dark form, then I I just painted those little, straws, they build the nest, the little straws, it was just like a Chinese calligraphy. And when I put down the last few strokes, then that little piece looked like a little heart. I thought, look, that's a nice kind of a surprise, so I just stopped the painting. The dot com on campus. This is the same site, the pond, and the trees, and it's in the fall. And then the first one you saw, that was in springtime. And these, I put the two paintings together. I didn't mean to, but then, they lay in studio. Then I start to see them, and that was like very cool. Who I was just talking to about magic, how magic happened, you can plan for it. The same spot, you can see the painting gets more and more to something else. Yeah, it's more abstract. The same spot in fall time. I was painting this green house in a neighborhood, just the other side of the campus. This is a water park, and that's the finished painting. The house pretty much disappeared. You know, it's really about the trunks and the lines and the skinnier touch and the the plants and the primary color and the all the middle section, how everything worked together. I want my painting like this big stew. You've got everything there, and they have all different kinds of stuff, texture, flavors, but they also they form as one big thing. We got fox running around in campus. It's just like amazing. You never see that before. And then they just sit by the main road. They're very private creatures. But during that time, it's just like amazing. You see them just come out. When humans stay back a little. And this, of course, this guy didn't post for me. I just painted from my memory. They're running around from a house to house. It's watercolor. These are the geese, and the baby geese came out. And this is also watercolor, pastel. Yeah. That's the same tree. I painted this painting in one day. That's the election day. And I couldn't stand, watch, by the television, and was so nervous. So I just went out and then pinned that tree. And now we're not in a really great situation. Anyway, so I call this one the election day. So when the weather gets really cold, I painted this artificial tree in my studio. It's a white Christmas tree, and I hang some stuff. Birds, little ornaments, Christmas stuff. Sometimes you just need an excuse. Also, you just need like a one shape to get you started. This also is like a 7 feet vertical. And this one also part of that series, the Christmas tree series. And again, you can see my calligraphic gesture and it works with the big patches and the fat and the skinnier, and again, how the primary color works with the muted color. It's terrible slide. The tree is sort of disappearing, but sort of there is a ghost of it, still there, to hold everything together. Okay, so things start to open up, and last year, the first time I got out of the campus, and I did a residence on Fort George Island in Florida. It's a part of the National Park Service. So I try to paint that kind of denseness, it's sort of like that here, but it's a very different form of the vegetations in different environments. That painting just fell. You know, the easel, actually the same easel I'm using right now, just couldn't hold it the size. Also the painting is just too heavy, and so just fell on me. Then I just painted on the floor. The best part is you can see the ground, all different kinds of the, stuff. So I just keep them to cover the paint. St. George River. The rhythm, the music, in the painting, and also the fast and the slow, and also how your hands put on the, different kind of pressure, on your canvas, on your surface, and those are all kind of, things very important to me. They're how your body works, with your paint and with your vision, with your surface. To me, it's not a risk of work. It's really how the energy comes from and how your shoulder works. The power is not in hand. It's really, from a body, how you, work with your paint. These lead to something I would like to spend a couple of minutes to talk about, the 6 principles of the Chinese art. This is a form in the 6th century by this Chinese artist and art critic writer. And Xie He here talked about 6 things. It's a lot, like technical, your chops, how you can, make a composition, your color arrangement, and how you make the lines, and but all this, what they're for, it's really to serve the first point, the resonance of the work, and also how that transmit from artist to the artwork and to the viewer. It's something, that's the goal. That's the goal for your life work. And here you can see, you don't need to read, you don't need to know the meaning of those characters, but you can see the emotion and also see how the line delivered, and from a very singular little tip of this brush, and the material is very simple: ink, water, and paper. But the variety of the touch, the big and the small, the dry and the wet, and the fat and the, skinny, something just like a slide on paper, something really embedded into the paper. And then you think about, the negative space between the character, the lines, place. And to me, this is like something I think about every day, how to make a piece, really live and so nuanced. I remember, when I was in college, we had to take a Chinese painting class. Even though I was, my sort of concentrations in oil painting. In the Chinese painting class, this old professor, I remember him so clearly. All his fingers are yellow, his teeth are yellow, his tongue black. He uses his tongue, to use the moist, to get the moisture right on his brush, then he painted like this. And he asked us to just do the stroke for the whole semester, just different kind of strokes, It's really interesting. Think about it in Chinese painting training. They have all these strokes. They give each stroke a name. For example, the stroke called the nail's head and the rat's tail. So those names, it's very, very visual, to make you really think about how how you do it, kind of visual description to it. At the time, I hated class. I thought, this is like boring. It's just like, I want to express, I wanted to use color, So I try to skip the class, whatever I can. But now it's like, whoa, they're just staying in my head. Look at the speed in this one stroke, all different kind of, the hands is just like a dancer, it feels like a dancer, just like floating, cover the whole stage. Okay, I just put a few drawings this morning because I wanted to show my class. Drawing is so important, not just I don't use drawing as to study for my painting. I don't do that because I feel after I draw it out, I got it out. It's a complete thing. It's not really a study. But the drawing really lead me to where I want my painting to go. And then there is a very, very, immediate and direct kind of impact, And I try to, even in the painting, I try to really, just like limit, the process, Painting, of course, you've got your stuff out, you're mixing, medium, you have to have palette, you have to have all kinds of stuff. I try to make that part as simple as possible. And drawing is such a wonderful thing for that, to get your idea, get your head right on the surface. These are all charcoal, and right through, there is no long stick, just right. It's like you really do it. It's part of your body. That immediacy, just very, very important to how I see my painting, where I want, go to. And every Wednesday evening we have a drawing sessions at school. That's the first thing I put together when I start to teach there. And just everybody draw, and I don't talk to anybody, and students just do their work. Of course, you can't always drag your stuff, to paint. If you have short time, if you can't take all this luggage on the plane, how you work. And so through the years, I sort of, I figured out, how I do it, still take time, to figure it out. Basically, paper and some small boards, now they make these wonderful aqua board. You can use for watercolor, for wet medium, you can paint on it, you can draw on it, you can sort of scratch into it. And I also use paper, and this is just a paper charcoal, very simple. And you see the paper is all torn and scratch. I like that surface. John Lee's is amazing artists. You guys should look. The shore. I had this studio on Cranberry Island, right on the water. It was great. Feels like on the boat. And this is Groningen in Netherlands. I worked on this, worked as from a hotel room window. And always I have a blank pad with a watercolor and this, some pastel, can easily have in your carry-on. Just take with me. And the white lines it's a palette knife, just scratch into it. It's this cathedral I can see in the distance from the window. I draw in jazz clubs all the time. The musicians are amazing. Musicians are like, I think that these people are genius. They're really creative. Talking about improvise, talking about just, working together right on the spot. Some of them, it's just amazing. They never played together before. Yeah, that really gave me so much inspiration, about how I wanted to paint. I do kind of a long term thing. Some of the drawings I work on it for like half hour could be, and this is just like a few seconds, the gesture. I like to work in different manners, just keep you kind of fresh and alert, and just let things come in. This is a watercolor. I did it right there. Okay, that's it.
About how long do you spend on like an average painting?
Very. Yeah, some paintings I spend, let's say, maybe 6-7 hours straight. And then sometimes I'll go back to it next day, even next morning. Usually at the end of the day, I don't look at them, because I can't see them, just too close. And the next day you sort of see them and say, this is like it. So you keep working on that, and usually when I go back to it, it's really turning into different painting. Yeah. Each painting here, there are other paintings, there are many paintings under it. And also, sometimes you don't have the luxury of these long-term, long sections. So I just take whatever I get, to work on it. And some of the paintings worked for a long time. For example, a couple of these Christmas trees painting, because they're in the studio, so I could just I go back to it. That has a different energy. Some paintings are just really bunch of paintings on the site. There's no way I could go back to ops. It's interesting. That's a good question, because your mental preparation really, kind of takes big role there. If you don't feel you have the whole day to work on it, then you get more, alert, and then you sort of, okay, just go for it. So especially for landscape painters, if you think about that kind of, immediacy. Yeah.
What does atmosphere mean to you in painting? You mentioned that briefly and about how colors relate to each other. But when I think of atmosphere, I think of transparency, and that I think you're
using a different approach.
So you're talking about the surface texture, the transparency, and the space.
Yeah.
Okay. I know what I try to say is kind of contradictory. I want that everything's here, on the surface, but at the same time, I do like to have a sense of a landscape. I don't want to lose that. I wanted to have a both of these, and that's something I'm still working on. And I think some painting works better. Some painting sort of like I got too carried away. But my painting is kind of slow. It needed to stay with it. Give it a couple of minutes. I think things started to sort of move around. And I got a lot. People first thing they say, "Wow, paint." Yeah, cool, paint, because we're painting, we use paint. I like that. But it's not just paint, also it's not for the purpose of paint. Paint is a vehicle, to do what you want to do. The paint is really building up through the process. I think the paint, the surface come to this point is a lot comes from frustration to try to figure out the structure and then the color arrangement. And with each painting, I really try to take it to something different. I don't want it to repeat. I don't want to bore myself. I wanted to get excited and get frustrated. Think about, I got to figure out how to do this. So that's sort of like, through the process, the surface, gets built up. Yeah. And actually, it's a really good question, interesting. Lately I made these watercolors, and I got sort of back to the ground, and those white lines. That also helped me to think about what I can do in the painting.
Thank you for sharing. I really enjoyed it. Even though you're working a relatively short amount of time, a long day, I find it interesting the relationship between Howard Hodgkins has that kind of immediacy and feel for you know he's working a long time. Like Sutino, aren't you glad? It seems looking at your body working, glad that he. I had a teacher say once, painting is drawing with color.
Yeah, I think that line can be interpreted in many different ways. And also that involved how we see drawing. People have the different ideas of drawing. I totally agree with the lines. For example, you think about Edward Monk's work. Also, let's say, drawing, of course, right away we think about the line. And when you paint, mostly people use brushes. Each touch, that's the mark. It's about the mark. So I think that's totally, go together. Yeah. And of course, how each person use the mark, is very different. And I think a lot the characters and the artist just comes through that. There's so many paintings of apple being painted. You think about Giacometti's apple, you think about say Dante. They all painted so differently. The marks are so different. So the drawing is really embedded in the paint, in the color, in the when you do the color, of course, it's action of your hand.
I was struck by a few things. You're feeling overwhelmed by the Alps, your place in the space, in the landscape, and also the energy of the the courtyard without people. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about things that help you to meet and engage with those very powerful forces so well.
You know, there is a saying in Chinese philosophy, art, people is a little dot in the nature. You know, always I think about that line, and I think about our relationship, you know, with the surrounding, with what we see. And that also sort of like grounds me, you know, to think about the energy in the nature. And of course, you know, in the Alps and on campus, it's a very different kind of energy. You know, one is like this, and the one on campus, I look, you know, much closer. You know, so it's a different kind of energy. But this energy is everywhere. This room is full of energies, you know, from nature and from air and from people. And that really, in a way, it's like a source to get me to start painting.
And you talked about a painting that had the primary color harmony, and I was looking at your yellow was like a Cambian yellow light, your blue is like an aquamarine blue. But I didn't see like that fire truck red, you had like a dirt brown and a like abysmal pink. And I was just thinking about like, what does that play with the color harmony? Like, are you pushing the relationship of color?
You know, I'm not a tonal painter. And for me, how you use color to push the space and, you know, push the range. You know, lately also I think about the Dylan Belt painting a lot. You know, these are amazing colors. You know, the way he used color, you know, it's totally not common. You know, so just like the color really has just carried way out. And also I like to think about it, you know, the way he could use color. Actually, like, you think about the Renaissance painters, you know, the color is very symbolic. You know, they use the primary colors. Yeah, and the color, you know, the meaning of the color. I think it's interesting for me because I'm really, you know, observational painter, but I don't just be framed there. I wanted to have you know, all different kinds of things going on. You know, I'm trying to figure out. I think that will be just like can get me going until the day I draw. Yeah. It's an interesting area, place to go with.
I just wanted to touch on your talk. Many points just reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from Hoffman, and then I have a question. A sensation of movement and counter movement results in tension. Tensions are the expression of forces. Forces are the expression of actions. In their surreal relationship, the lines may now give the idea of being two shooting stars which move with speed through the universe. Your empty paper has been transformed by the simplest graphic means to a universe in action. This is real magic. So your paper is the world itself, or you may call it more modestly, only an object or simply a picture with a life in its a spiritual life through which it can become a work of art.
It's like that sixth principle.
Okay, thank you, Ying.